Great to hear so many people networking and talking. And in an hour or so, we're going to have some snacks and drinks. So there will be more time. We are continuing with the next panel for today, and this will be about voices from Nordic scale-ups. And is Nordic female leadership successful in the US? And if so, how can we use it? And I'm just going to say that even though there are only Swedes here on stage, we talk from the Nordic perspective. We are actually quite similar in the Nordic countries, but Sweden is the best country. But Finland and Norway are also quite okay. And Denmark is last on the list. So please give a warm round of applause for the next panel. Kristin Berg, Caroline Bergström, and Helene Honeybone. And if our microphones, if we talk too high or low, just give us a shout. Hi, everyone. Kristin Berg, 20 years of experience in the retail and technology sectors, and now CEO of Mestro, a platform for energy consumptions, who might want to launch in the US. You're here actually to hope I didn't say anything stupid now, but you
exactly, since we are a listed company.
But you're here to learn about the American market and to be here, yes. Caroline Bergström, head of Ancillary products. Ancillary, sorry. Ancillary products, yes, sorry. Connectivity and retail at SAS, the Scandinavian Airlines. So you make sure that that SAS earns a lot of money on like Wi-Fi and food and the coffee on the plane.
Yeah, and you pick your seat or your upgrades, everything that you could add on top of a ticket.
Wow, love that. And Helene Honeybone, owner and president of your own company, that's Practical Advertising in Texas. And you've run that for 24 years.
Yes, it's been 24 years. It's crazy.
Wow, that's
I don't
amazing.
feel 24 years older, for sure. So I work a lot with startup companies and sort of smaller to medium-sized businesses, and I help them not just companies establishing themselves in the US, but also American companies starting up or businesses in transition. So companies launching a new product, or they want to work with branding, they need help with business development or things like that. So.
And we're not going to do the same panel again in the same topic. So, but I just want to ask you one question that I asked the last one, and that is, what is Nordic female leadership to you? So when listening to the other panel, is there something like, do you agree with them or do you not agree, or what do you say, Kristin?
I mean, I actually, of course, I agree. There was a lot of wise things that were said on this stage, but I can also maybe add that I absolutely think that it is inclusive leadership. I mean, you choose if you include or if you exclude, and that is a thing that both men and women actually can do and will do. And I also agree with Linda that maybe it is females have a more easiness, if you can say that, to go to the inclusive leadership, since we have a history of being more open and curious about others, and maybe more active listening.
What do you say, Caroline?
I agree that the people that were here before, they said a lot of good and smart things that I agree with. Something that I could emphasize a little bit more on is that I think maybe women is a little bit more about relationship, building strong relationship with the people on their team. Maybe a little bit compared to men, talking from my own experience when I had female leaders compared to men leaders.
Helene, so you live in Texas and you worked with startups in 24 years. That's amazing, I have to say. And you've seen a lot of Nordic companies and startups and scale-ups coming to the US. Has their leadership style been successful here, or have you seen any bad examples?
I've seen both. for sure. I think almost when it comes to leadership or Nordic leadership, like kind of like we talked a little bit about on the phone, I do want to take a step back first, because I think that leadership in the US, you can't just talk about US as one. You actually have to look at the different cultures within the United States of America. Texas is very different than New York or LA. To talk a little bit about Texas, it's a very traditional state, very conservative, and of course that's also reflected in the leadership styles that you meet. I think that the Swedish companies that have succeeded, they prepared well, and they've had a strategy, an entry strategy, where they've taken the time to get to know that Texas culture before they've entered the market. And the ones who have not, I think they've underestimated the competitiveness or the speed at which business is done and conducted. And we always say that everything's bigger in Texas, and it's kind of true. We have, physically, we have the vast prairies, we have mega churches, we have cattle ranches, we have big hair, red pants. Psychologically too, you will meet some big personalities in Texas. You'll meet people with a lot of money, a lot of ego, strong will, a lot of money. But there's also a good side to that they do care about relationships. Relationships are very important. Greetings. They want you to ask about their horse, for example. That's part of the process. So I think if you can tap into that and understand that it's actually different cultures, like if we go to Japan, we would probably get someone on the ground in Japan who speaks the language and who could take us through that process of entering that culture in that country with our product or business. Texas is kind of the same way.
But that's so interesting. So thinking about the question of this panel, like does Nordic leadership, is that successful in the US? Do you have any examples of a startup or scale-up that comes into US or in Texas then, and it's not successful, like they just do it the Nordic way?
Yes, I think, there's a lot to be said about the Nordic way of doing business, but I think that a lot of Swedes think they know the States. So they come in and they think, I speak English, I eat at McDonald's, I see Hollywood movies, I got this, and you forget that that's not really how it is. And so also, I like to say that sort of the best combination is when the Swedish companies understand that they bring something to the United States, like knowledge, know-how, that innovative spirit, the flat organization, that thinking, listening skill, if you will. And if you combine that with the resources that we have in the United States, the capital, the marketing knowledge, then you'll be the most successful.
Kristin, you work, so Mestro is a Swedish company, but is international. Whilst you also worked as a CEO in a US company, and you worked in leadership roles in Sweden, etc. So if you would compare the two of them, or if you would take that knowledge, like how has being a Nordic leader contributed to the success in your companies?
How it has been to be a Nordic leader in...
That was a very long question for me, sorry. my short question was, has it been successful being a Nordic leader and using those Nordic leadership skills?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Unfortunately, I've not been the CEO of an American company, but I have had the longest title ever when I worked in an American company, Senior Industry Retail Consultant for EMEA. So you understand how long that was.
I just shortened that to CEO.
Yeah, exactly, that's good. No, I think I had a really good advantage because I was in an American company that was based in Lexington, Kentucky. traditionally hardware company, and they were buying a lot of software companies because they had figured out that, okay, so we are in a new age of digitization. We have to combine hardware and software and be more digital. So they bought a lot of software companies, but they did not actually include the culture with the hardware and the software part of the business. So the software part were like, you go and sell software, the hardware part of the business was to sell hardware, and no one combined the two. And I was like, so as a senior retail industry consultant for EMEA, again, I was supposed to educate the hardware people, like how do you sell on value, not just the box, how do you actually sell with value? And I was like, okay, so this is interesting, and then we need to combine them, and then we need to combine the people. So I was asking, so maybe I can actually build a Nordic team that is the first one that is allowed to sell both the hardware and the software part of the business. So I was able to grow a team of all the Nordic region people, all male actually, and they were the first one that actually sold a software and a hardware solution to a Finnish company. So I think that's...
And that was like a Nordic way of leading, you mean? That it was more flat, you listened, you included everyone, and is that something you couldn't just have done in the US in the same way?
Yeah, absolutely, I think so. I think it's just how I work, if I can put it that way, and I think that a lot of people work that way in flat organizations, that we see like, so it's not logical to working through all these hierarchies and all the different like business modules that you have in the different business layers, because you engage with customers and you build relations, and it should be the same person that's trying to engage in that way. And I just asked questions like, why do we do it like this? Isn't it easier if we do it like that? Because the customer trusts one person and we can bring all the solutions from this company. So I think I just questioned the status quo.
And is that something you think, I'm thinking that the audience here should, we need to give some keys to, or some concrete things that they can actually go back and use. Is that an advice that to ask questions, and what more?
Absolutely. Ask questions and like really with the people and the business. I mean, I'm for everyone. If I go back to this American company, if you have worked in a company for 10 years and you kind of built the success of that company, and then the company buys a new company and you're not relevant anymore, that's kind of hard on your self-esteem. So I think it's like trying to actually connect and build the people and the business together. And I mean, it's like common sense. Make people feel good about themselves. That's how you do business. And so that's always been my approach. Like, so how can we make people feel good about themselves and do good business?
Caroline, so you studied in the US and you worked there, and then you returned to Sweden, and you work from Sweden now on SAS, but with a lot, or almost all your partners are American.
Yes.
So
from other countries outside Sweden.
So what's your experience with the Nordic leadership compared to the American leadership? And I know, Helen, I shouldn't say American leadership because it's so different, but yeah, I'll say it anyway.
The way I would say it, there is a lot of like men in the airline industry, and when it comes to the products that I'm working with, and one of the differences that you can see is that we come there and we're a group of like female women on the team, and we have the power to make the decisions and decide which partner we're gonna go with and so on. But then on the other side, there's like only men on the other companies that kind of are the ones making the decisions and deciding like, okay, what can we give these people and so on.
But what do you say in the panel? We got some healthy skepticism that actually it's not that equal, that we might think. What do you say about that, Kristin or Helen?
No, I mean, it's a valid point. I mean, I'm the CEO of a listed company in Sweden, and I've been talking to investments or investor companies for 1 year now, and I haven't met one female investor in that time. So I think absolutely it's a valid point, but it's also something that we always have to work on. And I've also been the CEO of a company called Teknikkvinnor in Swedish, like Women in Tech, trying to educate and discuss why aren't we more equal by now? And it's really about identifying norms within your company, because everyone has norms. And if we talk about gender equality and inclusion in the way that it is, it's not male or female. It's the same rights and the same, I mean, it's the same rights. It's just that basic.
So Helen, let's get back to your 24 years of experiences with also meeting Nordic companies and bringing them to the US. What more have you seen that doesn't work? It's always more fun to hear about what doesn't work with the Nordic leadership model.
So just to give you some examples, if we've been sort of working in teams, and I feel like we've had this consensus discussion, and we've made decisions, and I leave the meeting, and then I find out 2 days later they're still waiting for me to make that final decision. Those kinds of things. So I think what I started doing and working with some of the Scandinavian companies I work with, actually I work more with Norwegian companies than Swedish, but in some of them in very male-dominated industries like Norwegian defense and aviation, we will go down or around the room a lot of times, and everyone can have their say, and I will choose to speak last. Because if I speak first and say, I think this, most of the time they're going to just follow me. And so if I choose to speak last, I allow them to kind of say I may have already made the decision, but I'm not going to tell them that. But, they get their voices heard, and then I say that's something I've had to learn. And I think that works. And that comes from some of the Scandinavian companies that I've worked with.
I love that hack. That's great. It just came to my mind. 10 years ago, I wrote a book where interviewing successful women, and one of them said that you always hear that don't be the woman who takes notes, because it's like you're an assistant in the boardroom or in the meeting. But actually, she said do that, because the power is in the words. So if you are taking notes, then you decide what actually was said at that meeting, because nobody really remember what's said on all these meetings. But then you can just send out your notes and say, yeah, this is what's decided. So great, love those hacks. Okay,
can I just add something to that? And it's that, Texas now, of course, it's growing economically a lot, and we're seeing a lot more young talent move into Texas, and it's wonderful. And I think that's also helping change some of the business, the business world, how companies are run. We're seeing more younger CEOs today. We have a lot of finance and tech, and something I've noticed over the past few years is some of the newer, younger CEOs adapting Nordic leadership in their companies. I've seen them become more visible with their employees, and that was something that I didn't see at all 25 years ago in Texas. But now it's like they it's easy. It's just them sort of going into the lunchroom sometimes, but that was never the case. It's very hierarchical. In Texas especially, and that just didn't happen before. So that's really cool, and I think that comes from our Nordic leadership.
But I just have to be the devil's advocate there and say, like, isn't it good sometimes to be a bit hierarchic? I was CEO of this tech news site for a couple of years, and even like our intern that was there for 3 weeks demanded a meeting with me the same day to discuss her tasks that she thought was too below her her level, and that is really for me that kind of sums up the flat organization that you're just supposed to be as a CEO, just like, yes, okay, I'm so sorry, and never ask for someone to get coffee. What do you say about this in the panel, Caroline?
I would say as long as you can stand up for your decisions and say, okay, I hear you all, but we're going to go this way. Yeah, go for
Then
it.
it's good.
Then I think it's
that the
fine.
intern can do this to me. Yeah, okay.
Maybe not. No, but it's good that everyone can get their voice heard. And then you probably gave her some other challenges that she grew into, and maybe...
Yeah, I was
grow a
terrified.
little
I
bit.
was afraid of her. So yeah, of course I did. I say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Kristin, what do you say about it?
I think, it's, again, going back to, of course, we want to listen to everyone, but if you have an inclusive organization, I think they would feel comfortable with speaking to the line manager and only speaking to you if it was something really specific that they felt like they couldn't talk to anyone else about. So.
But just to continue with you, Kristin, because you are you're a very honest and open person, and you've talked you were interviewed in the media in Sweden, and you were very transparent and talked about difficult times that you've had. Is that typical Nordic too, to be open and transparent? What do you say?
From my point of view, yes. I don't know if there's any statistics on it, but I felt like it's a way of letting people feel safe. If I tell them when I'm not feeling all great, and I have my ups and downs and my challenges, and I've tried to this when I started as a CEO of this company that I'm in right now. My opening on the first conference, when I was standing in front of the team for the first time, I did this timeline of my professional life and my personal life, and how kind of like I had a green light on my professional life, but my personal life was red. I felt like awful, and how it connected and what I'd done. So I feel like that's a good way of talking about self-leadership. I'm not always that great. I don't always feel that great, but I have to try to do the work anyways. And if I tell people about it, like today I'm not having a good day or a great day or a perfect time in my personal life, they consider that. And they also feel like it's okay for me to say that to the CEO. If you're part of my management team, you are allowed to say that this week is not a good week for me because I have sick kids, or my husband is giving me a hard time, or something like that. Then I know, and I can take that into consideration.
What do you say about this, Caroline?
I agree with you. I think it's really important for leader to have the open relationship with all the team members, so that you know how the people feeling this week, for example, because then you can choose, okay, am I going to give these challenging exercises, or should I wait for a couple of weeks to give them, but also to be there to support and coach them.
So, but you mentioned that you worked with, or the partners in the US were all men. I'm just thinking this like transparent leadership and being open, and does that work in a situation like that too, or is that more like internal with your team?
No, actually, I think that's how we are working, or at least in my team, both in my team, but also how we work with the partners. We usually set these like 9-10 requirements before we like pick a partner to work with, and one of them is like partner is key. So we really like dig into, okay, how is the relationship between us like gonna work, and that's something that we've got feedback from after we have chosen one, and they said that you are actually the ones that have emphasized most on like the partner is key requirement. That usually never happens if there's only like men that they are working with, but that's probably because we want this like trust feeling that is really important, and we want them to be our like part of our team, even though it is a partner, and we need to feel like the trust and openness to be able to get a good relationships, that we could challenge them if we think that they're not doing a good job or if there is something that they could improve. But I think it's easier to have those kind of discussions if you have a good like partnership and that you could be open with each other.
And what about this like flat, non-hierarchical, whatever leadership? And is that and this thing with like gathering feedback and asking questions? Does that work in a situation like that too, or do you have to be more like pointing with your whole hand, like we say in Sweden?
Repeat the question again, please.
No, I'm just curious if when you work, like when you sit across the table with partners and there are men, all of them in the US, can you still use this kind of Nordic way of asking questions and consensus, or do you have to be more tough in a situation like that?
Maybe a little bit more, like we say, okay, how can we grow the ancillary revenue with this product? What should we do? And in the beginning, we do more like an open discussion and get everyone's input. But then when we have decided on something, then we say, okay, this is how it will be, and then we go for it. But that's something that I brought back from the States when I worked here for a couple of years. I think here it's more clear. You say, okay, this is the goal, this is the vision, now we go for it. While sometimes in Sweden it could be more like you don't really make that decision that clear or the goals that clear. So it takes a little longer time to actually get to the results. So I think that's something that I brought back that I'm actually using with working with partners.
Helen, you said earlier here in the panel that we are sometimes a little bit too slow or something like that, the Nordic way. And yeah, tell us more.
Well, I mean, I've had several instances where I've had a Swedish company arrive to meet with their American counterpart, and that 5 o'clock hits, even if they're over here and they're going home, and the Americans are like, wait, we're still working on this, we're working through this, or why aren't they answering their phone? Or that's definitely happened, I think, and that doesn't mean that, you can't, there's a balance, there's got to be a balance between both, maybe, and maybe that's also helped by a little bit more cultural understanding in how each culture operates in a certain situation, maybe. If I could, I want to just kind of spin on to that theme about feedback. I think giving feedback and receiving feedback is a very Nordic trait. It's definitely a part of our Nordic leadership, and I think it's amazing that we are able to do that in the way that we do it in the Swedish companies today. I do not see a lot of that in Texas, unfortunately. In the American organizations I work with, it's more top down. So.
Yeah, because that's something I noticed also, because when I worked in the States, it was all like feedback from my leader down, but actually at SAS work, it's like the 360 feedback. So you get feedback like from your team to the leader, and leader down, and then to like co-workers on the same level, and so on. So I think it's a difference.
Yeah.
And does that work? Just a follow-up question on that, because we talked about a lot of good traits here in the Nordic leadership, but so we have a group here that probably want to go back to their jobs or their group or teams here at university and use a few of them, but how would, I mean, is that possible to just, Helen, what do you say that worked with both American and Swedish companies? Like, is it possible to just go back and start giving feedback or being more, no, okay, does that?
I mean, there has to be a happy balance, right? And so, but I think that's also part of being a leader, is also showing them that I want to learn and grow as a human being. And the way to do that is also to be able to receive feedback from my team, even though I'm the decision maker. It's important that I also learn from what you have to say about me. And so my sister always says that she's also a vice president for a company in Sweden. She says she usually walks into the room and she says, please tell me something that gave you high energy, that I did for you, that gave you high energy today. And then vice versa, please tell me something where I took away your energy from you. And I think that's such a good way of doing it, because it's not a threatening thing to say. You know, did I give you energy? Did I bring you up? Or, you know, so maybe that's a takeaway. I don't know.
Great, thank you. We're soon going to let you in for questions, so gather up some good questions. And Kristin, we talked a little bit about that, like how to find the balance between the two of them, the consensus-driven and being decision maker. Like, how do you do that?
Good question. I think that I start in the beginning with consensus, like trying to explain why we're doing this, and if there's another approach that I should be aware of, or if it's possible to go down this route. But I also feel like we are very good on getting everyone along in the beginning, like getting a consensus in the beginning. Now we are bored, now we have mission, vision, values, let's go. And I don't feel like we're going back and forward on that, because then we also have a very good explanation, like, okay, we're doing this because it's aligned with our vision, and we're doing this or getting this target because it's aligned with our vision, and you're not allowed to do this behavior because it's not aligned with our values. So I think that if you have mission, vision, values, and goals set in regards to those, it's not going back and forward. It's if you are not clear in the beginning, and you not have consensus in the beginning, that's where we go into this round and round and round and round.
That's actually a really good point that I think is a great takeaway for the audience. I mean, it's always good to have a mission and vision and a clear goal, but you're going to be able to implement all this openness and consensus-driven and community-driven leadership if you have that, right? So maybe that's a good takeaway.
Yeah, I hope so.
So do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, over there. Yeah, we need a microphone. And I have to tell you, you asked me if there are anyone from the Swedish embassy here, and I said, I'm not sure, but actually there's a whole group. So you have to talk later, if you haven't already.
One that's Scandinavian word that's entered the American lexicon, Danish, not Swedish, is hygge. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I wonder if in hygge and hospitality, how is that used in marketing products or services in the U.S.? And do women have a special advantage in hygge?
May I try to answer that one? Let me know if I'm not giving you the answer or if I'm not answering your question. At Mestro, we have this saying that we want to start a campfire. We want everyone to want to join us, want to sit at the table, and want to sit around our campfire. So we want to create a really nice atmosphere for everyone to belong. So I think that's we really put our heart into that and trying to do partnership and synergies, and when people ask us questions, we're like, wow, that sounds really interesting. Maybe not now, or maybe later, or yes, let's do it. But we really try to be really open-minded when people ask us questions and want to collaborate. And I think that we are good at seeing those advantages of doing things together instead of alone or separate.
More questions? Yes?
Hello. Well, my name is Shania to start off, and thank you for being here today. I think both panels touched on it a little bit, but we were talking a little bit about, or you guys were talking a little bit about some gender disparities that happen, particularly within the finance or sometimes the tech sector, and then even in leadership in different companies. And something that we've been talking a lot about in the company that I work for, which just happens to be in the tech industry, is a growing skills gap that is driven by technological advances. And it's not always specific to gender, but as I'm sure a lot of you know, STEM majors are more male-dominated. I don't know if it's the same in Nordic countries, but definitely in the United States. So my question was, do you see any potential to bridge this skills gap and make it maybe beat the norms that are less women-centric in these sectors, and to get people into these leadership positions through trainings or other methods?
I can just start on that. We had the Swedish ambassador in Dallas in March on International Women's Day, and we had a panel with a Swedish lady who's over the bank in Dallas, and Federal Bank of Texas in Dallas, and she touched on that very subject. And I think what she actually mentioned is it has to start already from the ground up. So we have to start introducing an interest for tech with girls at an earlier age. It has to start already in you know, not just middle school, but elementary school and up. And then also work with universities to expand the opportunities for girls to enter these programs.
Kristin?
Yeah, we have a lot of different communities in Sweden who try to address that question. It's not solved, unfortunately. But we have this Women in Tech, and we have this community that I'm actually a super proud board member in called PEP, who work with women that goes in junior grades, and they get a mentor from the university in tech, so that they understand that there's a line you can go to and get a good career in tech. But then it's also about educating the tech companies and the leader in the tech companies, so that they make it inclusive and you want to stay there and you want to belong to that company.
Thank you. One last question, and then we'll do a little wrap up. Who will do it? Yes. I was a bit nervous there. Nobody would raise their arms.
Hi, I'll be very quick because we don't have much time. Kristin Helene, I work for Milton USA here in Washington, D.C. What is something that you take from the American market and implement it in your companies?
I think it's that here you are more willing to make a decision and stick with it and try it out and get the speed going. And I think that's something that we in Sweden can do better sometimes, to make decisions instead of getting the consensus all the time, and then more that way.
Kristin, you look like you wanted to say something.
Yes, I wanted to say something because we've been really talking about it this week, since we are in a program with the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce. And we felt like we've been really pushed into being more clear on what we actually deliver, not talking about around our services and how you want to belong to the campfire, but also this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, and this is why we're the best at it. So I think it's really being direct on we're the best, choose us. That's something that I really bring back home.
Yeah, I agree with that. Be direct with some feedback sometimes. We do the loops because we don't want to hurt anyone. And sometimes it is good to be more direct.
I just have to say, also add something that I thought about tonight, that you are so great in like, you are so rhetorically great. And it's just a joy to hear you ask your questions, and I just think that, God, we need to work on that in the Nordics. And I need to work on that. I'm the moderator here. So just amazing. I love that. And I think that has a lot to do with like taking power and being, stepping into a room to be rhetorically great. So really take that with you. So if you would say one key takeaway now from today to the audience here in how they can implement the Nordic leadership way, what would that be? Helen?
I can start. What I would like to give you is just be yourselves. Don't forget to be yourselves. Everyone has a history and a experience. Build on that. Be proud of what you know. Be proud of who you are and communicate that, and then opportunities will happen.
I was actually gonna say something like be yourself and stick to it. So
now you have to say something
new. I have
new.
to say something new. But I think maybe trust is something that is big in within, like trust your leader, your coworkers. And when it comes to trust, it also means that you could give feedback both up and to the side and down if you actually trust people. So maybe something like that.
Kristin?
Yes, I would say that leadership is really not about what you're saying, it's how you're saying it and how you are making people feel about themselves when they are around you. You want to leave people with a feeling of that they are valued and trusted and appreciated. So it's about the feeling when you leave the room or when you enter the room.
Thank you. That was a great advice to finish the panel with. Thank you so much for coming here and travel all the way to Washington, D.C. also for both two of you, and from Texas, Helen. So thank you so much. Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you. Yes, we're going to have a little bit of a wrap-up here, right, Linda? So let's give a warm applause again to Linda Björk. Are we sitting down? Yes. Okay, so you have some big weights on your shoulders now. Is that, no, that's not the right expression. We have a lot of expressions in Sweden, so sometimes the direct translations isn't that good. What I was going to say is that we have really high expectations on you now to kind of summarize those two panels. So what have we learned, and what can the audience bring with them now back to their career and their jobs?
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for putting me on the spot. You know, you've been great. I think that we should give a really warm round of applause. You have kept such great energy, and your sense of humor is just uncanny, and I love that. Yet it made me feel a little serious when I heard all the wisdom on these two panels. I kind of got a little serious, despite all the laughs, right? Because these are extraordinary times. We are truly at an inflection point in business and in governance, in leadership, and what we have relied on before and what has made us feel safe, which is our nervous system's priority number one, those rules don't apply anymore. So what do we do? You know, so I've really been taking it in, and this is an important time. And I think that I did introduce some consciousness, the evolution of consciousness thoughts in the very beginning. And I think it's time to go beyond female and beyond Nordic and beyond American and beyond male. And we do have a roadmap in the evolution of consciousness that, there are other consciousness levels that we can reach. And I certainly work hard every day. I work joyously, I should say, every day to help leaders to get into this paradigm shift of leadership, because we're never going to be able to be successful and run companies the way we did 10 years ago. Or, of course, not 50 years ago, but that's a lot of what we know how to do, right? So the level and speed now, it's not just that we're getting, I used AI this morning. I thought it would be fun to introduce AI as a companion rather than, the lexicon. It's not just that the technological advances are relentless. What they do is that they really point us to saying, whatever you thought was a good education before, knowledge and knowing stuff and putting things together quickly, forget it. It's like we've been outnumbered, like they outdo us any time of the day. So what is it? What does it mean to be human? Business and leadership is so focused on what are we going to do and how are we going to do it? What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? But now we have to ask ourselves, who am I doing all of this? And why am I doing all of that? So that, I kind of got a serious turn from all the wonderful.
That.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah.
But I'm thinking when you say that, and then I started to think what I really will remember from those two panels is that and especially in these new times when technology kind of, like you say, erases a lot of knowledge that or practical skills that we used to have. But it's so important to be able to listen to other people and to ask questions and to gather a lot of knowledge that we heard so much here from, that we can really learn from the Nordic leadership. But then also be able to take decisions, be brave, be in the front line, that we can learn from the American leadership.
Yes.
So maybe some combination there that could be good in new times.
Yeah, I think so. And hopefully we can transcend that, because the level of collaboration and co-creation that's going to be required to solve the level of complexity of the problems that we're facing now compared to just a few years ago will just require us to work differently. So I think we definitely take those things. A bit of warning when we're being very inclusive and when we're being very caring and we listen and we take time. You easily burn out. And I've seen this, I work as an executive coach and I do a lot of leadership training. And I was thinking about, I'm going to share one thing from this book, shameless plug. No, it's called Mind Skills. And just so you have a visual of it, it's light blue. And one of the things that I would love for you to take away from this, because of course there's a big message from the wonderful features of Nordic leadership. But what we need to be good at is setting boundaries. And if you don't know how to set boundaries, you're going to be toast pretty quickly. So here's the formula for setting boundaries. Now you know forever, soon you'll know forever how to set boundaries. Number one, you have to feel into and define for yourself what is okay. What's okay? That's one side of the boundary, right? Then you feel into and define for yourself what is not okay. This is actually not okay. Once you've done that, especially as a leader or when you communicate in a team, make sure to communicate in the affirmative. The human psychology, if Michaela tells me, you better submit those things before 3 o'clock, otherwise you can forget about, that is one side of the boundary, but it's the negative side of it's the no side of the boundary. But if she says, if you get it in before 3 o'clock, I'll turn it around for you by the end of the day. So that's a boundary. The 3 o'clock was the boundary there, right? And then, of course, the last part is also important, and this is what we have a really hard time with in the Swedish people-pleasing culture, which is to actually communicate the consequences of if someone is disrespecting or stepping over your boundaries. And then you stick to it. So that's really where we can, I guess it is a bit of a mix of the cultures to be able to communicate that. And I think it's a really great way to embark upon the inclusivity and the Nordic leadership style without burning out. Because we do have problems with burnout and stress in Sweden galore, in spite of all the vacation days. Yeah.
I thought we were going to sit here and like summarize the panels in a list. Like that's the Swedish mindset of mine. You know, I saw in front of me how we were going to do that. This ended up with something completely different, which I love. I love that.
And you haven't even seen the finale yet.
No, exactly. But until when we get to, we will come to the finale. But thank you so much. Jokes aside, you're so spot on with that, because it's important. I've seen so many leaders that want to implement the consensus-driven leadership, and it's difficult if you don't have boundaries too, because you end up just wanting to make everyone love you, and that's not possible.
Yeah, that's right.
But is there anything more that you sat in the audience and thought, like, yeah, this is spot on. This is something we need to kind of wrap up in the end for the audience to take with us?
Oh yeah, I could double click on a lot of things that were said. And one thing that Helen was saying, for instance, is get a community of people around you and really find your tribe, your group, your support. You know, we actually get together on every Tuesday with a women leadership group, an international women leadership group, where we're there for our self-development, but also to be supportive of one another and find those kinds of situations. And yeah, whatever you can do, being in that curiosity and learning mindset, that learning and being curious is the best way of evolving. You know, that's always going to be something you can count on. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Again, so many good things were said. I mean, we could double click on everything here, but yeah.
So before we go into the big finale, where can we get your book?
Oh, it is sold. Thank you for asking. No, it's everywhere. No, it is definitely on Amazon worldwide. It just rolled out, so I'm not really sure exactly where it has popped up, but you can order it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or anything to that effect. And so if you just put in Mind Skills and my last name, Björk, or something, you're going to find it. And it's a great journey. And I actually wrote this together with a bit of a tech legend here in the United States, Stephanie Michko. She was recently the CTO of Charter Communications, which is a Fortune 100 company, and I've been working with her teams for many years. And at some point, we just said, "Listen, we need to write this down. We need to really get this." So you have 14 what we think are the most important mind skills to make it in the big leagues. Yeah.
I love that we can say when this book becomes a bestseller, we can say we heard her. I sat next to her on stage. So let's do the finale.
And we were matching.
Yes, we were matching. Yes.
Because the one thing that I know is going to help you the most when you are walking out of here is to have a deep connection to yourselves. Because we can sit here and talk and talk and talk. But if you don't know yourself, if you don't have that, again, connection with yourself on the inside and your true you, your deeper you will actually not contribute to the fullest of your potential. So we're going to do a breathing meditation together. And that way we can at least try, and everybody here will say after today that I did actually try meditation, and it was so boring, or it was so fun. Who knows? We're going to see. But we're going to try it, and what I'm going to do is then I'm going to ring my bells, and that's when we begin. And at the end of it, I'm also going to ring my bells. But it's very uncomplicated to meditate. We're just going to sit straight up and down, feet on the floor. If you want to take your shoes off, feel free. We are going to put our hands in our laps, and for those of you who feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. We're safe here. And if you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can just sort of make fuzzy eyes on the floor. The whole idea is to rest your visual cortex, because it actually drains a lot of your brain power. So right now we're going to go on the inside, and we are sitting in our meditative pose. We're starting to land in ourselves, and we're soon going to begin the meditation. And we're just observing ourselves from the inside. See how your whole perspective and consciousness change just from you closing your eyes or making fuzzy eyes. You're seeing yourself from the inside. We're just landing in the fact that we're breathing. Or maybe we're giggling. Whatever comes up is fine. And right now, I want you to pay attention to the fact that more so than breathing, you're being breathed. We're not manipulating the breath. We're not trying to count in any way. We're just observing that we have an automation in us that makes us breathe. We're also going to notice that you have a lot of thoughts that come. You didn't order the thoughts. They just show up. That is the job of your brain, to produce thoughts. But seeing that 95% of your thoughts are recycled old thoughts and pretty useless, for right now, we're just going to let them go. And we turn our attention back to our breathing. And as you do that, you might notice that on the in-breath, the air is a little cooler than on your out-breath. So we're just observing ourselves as a breathing entity. And by now, you might be wondering, why am I feeling so tired? Or when is this boring meditation going to end? Or what am I going to have for dinner? We're just observing that there are all these things that come up. But here's the beauty. You are the observer. You have a safe space that you can go to at any time within yourself. So by now, your heart rate is slower. And with that, your brain waves are longer. And this is what we call a heart-brain harmony. There's a coherence between your brain and the heart. So we're still just observing that we're breathing. And when you continue doing this on your own time, which I hope you will, you can go for much longer, and you start practicing, much like going to the gym, of being in the observing mode instead of reacting to every thought that pops up. So we're going to take a couple of more breaths together in silence. And when we're ready, I am going to ring the bells. And please make sure to be careful as you open your eyes. But right now, we're just still observing that we're breathing, and we are enjoying the deliciousness of our inner selves.
Wow, I don't really know where to start here.
Want to unpack this?
I'm a bit jet lagged too, so it was double the. No, what came to my mind is that I love that people will leave this this evening and maybe think that all Swedish or Nordic CEOs or leaders, they meditate with their co-workers.
Yeah, I love that. It's true,
exactly,
100%. No.
That's actually a really nice idea. I thought that was very nice. But no, thank you so much, Linda. You're a brave soul. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Right, so we are going to have some snacks and drinks, but first of all, Anna, a big round of applause for you too for organizing all this. Wow! Woo! Wait, before I give the mic to you, thank you so much from me to you, and it's been really amazing to hear all your questions, and thank you the panels. Lovely coming here. I arrived from Sweden yesterday and will go back tomorrow, unfortunately. Yeah, it's crazy, but it was worth it. So thank you so much. And over to you, Anna.
Thank you, Camilla. This was just amazing, fabulous, wonderful, and really this thought leadership, putting this together with the panelists for Camilla. There was I was just telling some of my students, they're here, that this is one of the most amazing panels I've really ever observed, because it was so natural and flowing so wonderfully, and you were at the helm of all of that happening. But thank you to Camilla and to all of our panelists. We have some gifts for you, me and Christopher, who is also, co-organizing this event, and of course, Svea is here, part of the package and co-sponsoring, and we have our staff in the back, Nevena, Alexis, and Rachel, who've been helping. This has been a big event for us to put together, lots of thoughts going into it, and it's stunning that we were able to get you to come. I mean, we still can't quite believe it. We just have to, like you do in Sweden, you have to pinch yourself and yeah. So why don't you come up, and you will get a little gift from George Washington University to bring home with you on that flight. Hopefully you have a little room in the luggage. So, but again, thank you so much, and please stay. We have nice Nordic food in the back and some drinks. So hang out and chat with us and do some networking, connect with these ladies. I think they're very open to talking to students and really helping them and be those mentors and sponsors that, take maybe you into the next highest level of, not meditation, but, So, yeah, maybe. Yep. Yeah, I was thinking I would like to meditate again, but I need Linda there, her voice, right? Ooh. Okay, well, Camilla, why don't you come first? And then maybe the panels come up one at a time? Thank you so much.